that's what I was kind of hoping for. Is I was going to hope for we could record it and go live at the same time, and then if I want to jump over and draw a little bit while you read a little bit later or something,
Yeah.
then we can.
Are we on? It looks like.
Yeah, we're recording.
Cool.
It's been a while. It's been about
It's been
6 weeks, I think.
It's been over a month or more.
I didn't realize it'd been that long until.
Well, you had recorded a couple of things while I was out.
Right. Well, you were out, and then it was like, well, I was texting you just after we got back from my stepmom's funeral,
Right.
to see about a podcast, and you said you'd gotten sick.
Right.
With the 19.
Got the COVID.
Got the COVID, and
So, yeah, that sucked.
and so then it was, what was interesting about it though is I was like, oh, and then I went and looked and realized that had been almost a month at that time.
Yeah, we.
And I couldn't believe it. I was like, what the heck? And so then I,
Right.
and
Yeah, it's time flies when you're not having fun. But yeah, I got diagnosed with COVID on the 16th of last month, and then one of the things I wanted to talk about was one of the things that I think the problem is when doctors are treating COVID. I say treating because I don't know if it's since it's a novel coronavirus, meaning it's new and nobody knows anything to do about it. I think doctors are at a loss of what to do, and in my particular case, I was miserable at home. It took away my oxygen there, cut it in half basically, and I never realized, because I never had asthma or anything, I never realized how once your oxygen goes, your your strength goes too, and you can't do anything except suffer. And so, when I first got diagnosed, I asked is there any medicines, and they said, nope, just go home. And I said, is there any follow-up visits that I'm going to have? And they're like, nope, just go home. And I was like, okay. And 2 or 3 days into it, my sister, luckily, kind of saved me. She sent me a thing called a pulse oximeter, which measures your pulse and your oxygen. And so I stuck that thing on my finger and was measuring my oxygen intake. And I called the doctor, told him that I was breathing at an 83, normal would be 100, 95 to 100. And they said, oh my God, you should go to the emergency room right away. I go, okay. And so they actually suggested that I don't drive because it's like driving drunk.
Right. I was going to say, how did you?
But so they said if you don't have anybody, you should call an ambulance. But I know an ambulance is instant $5,000 to $10,000 right there. Boom. So I drove. I mean, yes, I didn't have anybody to drive me, so I drove anyway and went to the emergency room and checked myself in. They gave me steroid injections to strengthen my lungs and put me on oxygen I was on oxygen for over 2 weeks.
Wow. But you were at the hospital for what, day?
Just one day.
Overnight, right?
Right. So,
and that's about the time I called. That's the time I text you. It was like, hey, you're like, I'm at the hospital. I was like, what?
Yeah, it's funny though, right
Freaked
now
out.
there's over 2,000 cases reported in Utah today, and they're saying that their hospitals are at capacity.
Right.
And yeah, I just don't know. I sometimes think that there needs to be something that happens in the beginning when you're first diagnosed, to prevent the overcapacity of the hospitals. Because I think my lungs degraded quickly in the first 3 days, to where I, couldn't breathe, and because most every thing is done at home. It wasn't because there wasn't any medicine that they gave me. They just gave me the steroid injections and monitored me overnight to see that my lungs were reacting, I guess, getting stronger, and then they just sent me home.
No,
with oxygen.
You said you had antibiotics, though.
No, well.
Or was that for something else?
That's funny.
Was that for the STD?
It's funny that you mentioned that. So when I first got sick, I thought that I just had an infection in my throat.
Oh.
And so when I called the doctor, because you don't see a doctor anymore.
Right.
You call the doctor and then you do a video conference or whatever the heck it's called. And so I did this video call, and I told him that I had a swollen throat and that I needed antibiotics. And they said, well, we'll get you the antibiotics, but you need to take the test. And so I had to go drive down and do the COVID test, which is another thing. You don't go in anywhere. You stay in your car, and you're in a line with 1,000 other cars, and eventually you get to the front of the line and they test you.
Right.
They do a spit test now, but one of the problems that the spit test has is it has to be pure liquid. You can't have any phlegm in it. You can't have any, anything in it. And when I was spitting into that container, I was spitting blood. So they said, well, that's probably going to be rejected. It's probably best that we give you the old-fashioned nasal swab. And I said, sure. Which that's uncomfortable, but, I think it's more reliable.
Right. The nasal, your whole thing has got me thinking about that lately. It's like, how come you have to go so far in?
I don't know.
I don't understand how this is COVID, but this isn't COVID. Yet I need to have a mask because it's COVID. Is that dumb logic, or does that make sense?
I mean,
if this is COVID, but this isn't COVID, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
One thing I thought we could do after we get done with a little bit of this is I was doing a live video the other day of drawing one of the characters from our Shattered Time book.
The mech driver?
Yeah, the mech driver. And at the end of it,
oh yeah, the questions.
Yeah, a guy came on. His name was Kilo Briley. And
shout out.
Yeah, and
shout out to a person we've never met.
Yeah,
but at least you asked a bunch of great questions.
Yeah, and he reached out to us at the end. He reached out with me with an email and asked me a bunch of, because he said, I asked him if he was an artist, because, usually when I'm streaming art, and it's in the art section, most people, and he's like, no, but I'm a big science fiction fan, sci-fi fantasy fan, so he asked me a bunch of, questions afterwards. I thought, you talked about maybe that might be a good podcast to go down through. Some of his list of questions about.
I mean, he asked
about our universe, and
he asked some good questions. Because one of the things we've talked about on previous podcasts is the story itself. It's a great standalone story, but the story was really only created by me because I was trying to explain a universe that I was trying to create, and it's all for a role-playing game. And it's funny, how the role-playing game and everything has just kind of died away, and all I concentrate on now is writing the novels and the graphic novels. But still, I think that what makes a story great, especially in the science fiction fantasy world, is if you can explain things in the story. Because like if I was to watch The Matrix and just watch the action scenes where they're running up walls and doing weird stuff, my mind might not accept it, and I might not enjoy it. But it was the fact that they created the Matrix, which was an artificial world where the rules could be bent. That was enough to explain it to where my brain can now shut off and just enjoy the fact that they're running up walls and dodging bullets and stopping bullets,
Right.
and
Flying.
and doing all the cool stuff that they do. But yeah, so really just to me, science fiction fantasy is establishing the rules of the universe.
Well, you got to establish rules, and then establish not so crazy rules sometimes. And then the hardest part, I think, for anybody is to stick to the rules,
Right.
and not just bend them when you get to a plot hole, or you. I think one of the best things I ever saw was the Animaniacs. They did a cartoon movie back in the day in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And they're doing their thing, and they're going, and there's 5 minutes left in the movie, and they're deep into the action or into it, and it's like, well, how do we get back to the school? I know, we'll just time warp back. Plot hole, and they jump through a giant plot hole back to the school.
Right.
It's just like,
Right.
it's just.
But it's funny because you were saying that people need to stick to the rules, and this might get me a few people pissed off at me. But when Harry Potter first came out in movie form, the very first movie and the second movie, loved them. But then the third movie came out, and I didn't like it. And it took me a second to realize why I didn't like it. And in the first movie and the second movie, they follow the rules, and everybody's dressed up as a witch. They have their full outfits on, and that's what they wear, and that's what's considered normal in the non-Muggle world. Because that's the clothes that you wear.
Mm-hmm.
But the third movie, suddenly their uniforms disappeared, and they all were wearing Muggle clothing.
Oh, high school
And
clothes.
they were wearing, jeans, and they were wearing normal shirts, and it looked like Harry Potter and the Gap ad.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, welcome to Harry Potter and the Abercrombie and Fitch ad. Woo!
That is true.
They never changed it. They never seemed to change back into their wizard clothing.
Was that when Hermione had blossomed?
Yes,
And they had to put her in a little bit of a midriff and tighter jeans.
Right. Well, it just
It's not like that show needed that stuff.
to me that just kind of sucked me out of that world, and it's like,
Yeah, that makes sense.
you can't do that. Like you said, you have to stick to it. And if you saw Lucius, riding a horse and in one scene, and then he jumps off into the mud and he has shoes on.
All right.
I think that would be the worst thing you could possibly see. It's like, why is he wearing shoes?
Right.
It's like, I don't know. Some people don't even know if they're first-time listeners. They're wondering what the hell is he talking about.
That's true.
But it's just part of the rules.
Just part of the rules, yeah. His questions are great. Because, if you're just tuning in, and it's even had some stuff that I'd already been thinking about too, because we had a little bit of a conversation already, me and this guy, on Twitch stream, where he asked a couple questions, I answered back a few things, and then he was like, he couldn't put his mind to rest, so he wrote this big old huge list of stuff together. But even I have been, because we've been talking about stretching the story a little bit differently in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And I know but I've been racking my brain with trying to figure out how to get that. You talked about that time lapse.
Right.
How to show the time lapse. My biggest, once again, staying with the rules, but whatever, of the time lapse is if Lucius is already older,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have a significant amount of time so that things are settled. I watched a movie the other day, and it had only been like 5 years since something had happened, and they made it feel like it had been going on for 100 years, and that was the new normal way of life. And it's like, no,
Right.
you wouldn't be that settled into that new way of life. And I like the idea of at least a generation or two
Well, that's what
of that life. And then I was trying to figure out how do we have Lucius at this age not die by the time, or be so old and feeble that he can't fight Len
Right.
later.
Another thing that I was thinking of is one easy way to show passage of time that a lot of books, etc., use is children. I was wondering if we should introduce a character in there, a child, and have him grow up. But then again, I don't want the focus to be on just that one character.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think like we had talked about, I think using Paul and the mech driver and all those kind of characters, and having them have conversations, we can show kind of a passage of time.
Well, yeah, but you see what I'm.
Right.
It's just, if you want Lucius to be, I mean, there's a thing where you could have him train like somebody else, and they are the ones that face Lucius at the end, or face Len at the end. He becomes the mentor to the kid or whatever, and they're the one who does the fighting. But I did like the idea of Lucius being that person. I mean, there is a way to do it that I didn't want to spoil. Just thought of, but I don't want to spoil it. That we talked about off camera, I think.
Yeah. It was over the phone.
Yeah, it was over the phone.
Excuse me.
And I didn't want to spoil it, but I think it would work. Oh man, where's? Let's see. I should try to do this and keep talking.
Yeah, well, that's okay. It's,
but
because when Joe Rogan has Jamie pull something up on the computer, he just stares at the computer. And there's no audio of anybody talking. It's just him staring, and then he reads it.
That's true.
But
I know I shouldn't have to pull it up this way, but
we don't have the professional studio that Joe has.
But I guess this is what I was kind of thinking. One way to and I'm not going to show it to everybody because I don't want to. If we did decide to do something like this, but
The augments.
turn him into that,
Right.
which would allow him to
Right.
still be. I mean,
Fully functional.
this part up here could be 120 years old,
Mm-hmm.
where this is a spry 40
Right.
with augment, but that might be a way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he was on death's door, Paul saved him and the mech driver saved him, and then took him to, and then they got all that put on him,
Right.
and then the idea that Len disappeared for quite a long time, and then it's come back.
Well, another thing I
Right.
was wondering is, it's funny, you know, you write something like, and you actually lose. I don't remember where it is in the story, which book it is. When the aliens actually make contact and ask for the what do they call him?
Temporal disturber.
Temporal being or whatever.
Yeah.
When they ask for that, I can't remember when that is. But I was also thinking, you know, there should be an alien that joins Len's or Lucius's party.
Oh yeah. That totally, yeah.
Because I think that would make for some great conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because, you know,
Well, it'd be great if that's where he got the augments, and then
right. I'm just wondering if there should be some more physical reasons that he has the augments, like he was in some combat somewhere and lost.
well, that's what I was thinking is you know, you had this all leading up to this final battle, but if there's a subsequent early battle where it's like almost where it seems like book 8 comes to book 2,
right,
or something, you know what I mean? And it's like it's over already, but you know, it's that you know, I talked about this idea. Well, what if he had everything and then they failed
right,
to put time back, and they're decimated, you know?
mm-hmm.
So there's the whole idea that they're decimated. He gets put back together, and then we jump 75, 100 years in the future, and he's living in that crappy apartment thing with the augment, you know. But it's just life because Len left. Len went somewhere,
right. That's what
and now the world is.
I'm thinking that that initial battle should be a huge, like, wake up call for Lucius that he's outmatched.
Right.
You know, and then the more he studies it, the more he realizes that the way to fix it is to, you know, gather these people, and, you know, that will take a while.
Right. And that's why I thought one of the cool ways for him to do too is, you know, in the story stuff that I was researching about writing stuff, there has to be that humbling part, you know. He gets shredded. There's a humbling there. But there's also kind of a humbling I thought would be cool is that he actually has to track down a wood watcher and try to figure out a way to get back to some of that ancient magic. Now, I know they've lost it, but they've got to know where... Something's got to know where something's. You know what I mean? You might have forgotten how to do it, but you don't forget. You never, like, maybe like it's in a mystical place that they think is just... That was like... I thought was very interesting was in Harry Potter with the Deathly Hallows. That was just mythology.
Right.
That, you know, those are just mythology. It's not the way we have to use Deathly Hallows. It's just...
Right.
But could be stuff in the Woodwatcher's mythology that they think is just old mythology hokum, but, you know, to like a modern scientist and stuff like that, you're like, oh, well, that's just this.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or whatever. And maybe they could...
Well, I mean...
Because that one Woodwatcher almost tears him apart, right?
To go further on your point there is...
Oh, she does. Len has to save her, right?
They, yes. They have, you know, they're the ones that wrote the prophecy.
Right.
every story has to have a prophecy.
We're just, you're probably like, what the heck is this all about?
Right. But that prophecy, maybe there's more to it because maybe Lucius could go and talk to them because he's wondering if there's a weakness
Mhm.
that the prophecy might speak about.
Or something, there's,
But
I like the idea of them like working together a little bit, or at least one of them.
right.
But it's just,
Well, it also it also allows us to have a character around that might do shady shit,
mhm.
and it's always nice to have a character that does shady shit.
Well, Paul and the two dwarves.
Well, they're just overzealous.
Yeah, but in my mind, they're profiteers.
Oh yeah,
So-
it's all about him.
Right, they're profiteers. So it's like, so on Firefly,
Mhm.
what's the Baldwin's character?
Baldwin, his character. Yeah, that's Paul
Paul. It's like,
in a lot of ways.
he'll do good if
You have
whatever,
to.
but if I can make a buck on the side, yay!
Do you want to be in charge? Yes, I do. Well, you can't.
So
I love that one scene where he unzips his jacket. Shiny, let's be bad guys. Zip, and there's that HKMP5 right there. But yeah,
So to me, it's almost like, because you have this story, and then you want to, because I can tell you're trying to put a lot of philosophical stuff in it, to a degree. I mean, and yet there's I don't know how, there's not a place to do it in some spots, but you could have this like where we did 1 and 2, you do the time lapse, and then all of a sudden people are they're all spread out doing different things, but they're you can almost, what would Lucius, would he be a cop? Or would he be just a guy living in his apartment? Or
well, that is kind of a good question. You're basically asking, what does he do day to day to sustain his life?
Well, yeah, but I mean, once you got into this, it's like, just think about a bunch of superheroes with no crime, and after about 70 years, what's Superman doing? From, you know what I mean, or bat, is he a checkout clerk at a supermarket, or is he a lawyer? Or I mean,
Right.
it's kind of a odd thing, but or is he, which is a way to showcase the whole, this fights against that, is he doing underground fighting
No, I mean,
type thing, where that way you're seeing
I
the
think-
cowboy against the alien, you can, and there's a way to show that type of stuff. Or,
I think, because I'm not a big fan of the, Lord of the Rings type thing where you're taking a ring and you're going to, you're going from point A to point B and that's the story. But I did kind of write that into the story there a little bit, is what Lucius is doing, which allows for all this passage of time, is he's going from place to place collecting people.
right,
Because in order for him to recreate the what Len had done and to shatter the time, in order for him to recreate that and hopefully fix time, he has to have people from all these different time periods. So he's just traveling from place to place,
collecting
and
people.
collecting people.
Right. So, but like, are they the A team? along the way. You know what I mean? Like helping some, because there's got to be
Well, I mean,
a main thing that happened.
if this was like a TV show, that would be my thought. Would be that there would be just like it's funny. I started watching Briscoe County Jr. again. Anyway, but yeah, stuff can happen, and there can be little short stories.
Well, that's what I would think. You do 1 and 2, where you get all the way to this battle, blah blah blah. He gets re-put together. Time passes, and now he's got his little band going around and getting the
needed people.
the bright lights. I don't just something stupid like that.
Right.
His rings in his gauntlet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's going around to collect these people, and as they're becoming this little band, one book is them going to one place, and then you have it almost like Monster of the Week,
Mm-hmm.
that book, and then the next book, you can do the next 4 books that way.
Mm-hmm.
That'll take us, to 6?
Right.
Or 7? Or, I don't know, maybe it's not 8 books, maybe it's only, but you could have like, boom, 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 and the overarching stuff is happening to bring us to the final resolution.
Right.
But you could have a couple interesting, fun little,
Yeah.
one great book, and it's like the Han Solo movie should have been just the heist. Just that heist scene was so awesome. If they would have just spent the whole movie on the heist, I mean, that would have been. All the other stuff was, oh my gosh. For the most part, it was so freaking boring and predictable. The only thing I really liked Kira. I liked her character. I thought she was great.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact they explain why she could fight, how she could fight, stuff like that.
Right.
I didn't think Han Solo needed to grow up as a orphan on the streets, for the most part. Oliver Twist, but not Oliver Twist. He would have been Dodger from Oliver Twist. He didn't need to be that character. He could have just been somebody who grew up in a regular old home, went to the police academy, or went to the, space academy, and then was Maverick at Top Gun, doing stupid stuff that gets him bust out of flying, and all he wants to do is fly.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's a janitor, and then he goes AWOL, saves Chewie on the way out, and then they are throughout the galaxy running and gunning because they have to smuggle just to be able to stay under the radar, or the Empire's radar.
Right.
And there it is. There's those two. They're not bad.
Mm-hmm.
They maybe do stuff on the side every now and then just to make ends meet. But for the most part, they're just good guys, and that's exactly what they were.
Right.
And it's just like, but you don't have to shoehorn stuff so hard to try to beat. Sometimes it's just kiss, right? Keep it simple and short and simple. It's like,
yeah. So
remind
me of some questions.
So here's his first question. So like I said, shattered time, bringing a bunch of wars together, supposedly all war.
Past, yeah.
Right, past,
present, and future.
And he has a couple questions, but like, if so many people from so many different ages meet fighting a war, do they have to communicate and coordinate with others? Yes.
Yes.
My one thing about that was Semper Fi. I think Semper Fi is an age-old philosophy. Overcome.
Semper Fidelis, I don't know exactly what it means.
I think it's
Sorry.
adapt, overcome, improvise,
Right.
or adapt, improvise, overcome. Right. So,
But I think anybody that's in combat, when suddenly something changes so drastically, I mean, unless you're hand to hand with somebody, you would notice things have just changed. And I mean, I would, you know, unless I'm in, you know, somebody's shooting at me or whatever, you know, I can stop the immediate threat. But after that, I would try to assess what the hell is going on.
well, yeah, but even still, it's like a modern-day soldier sees a Roman across the way. He should be able to point at that guy, point at his eyes, and go like this. Do you see
All this shit.
bad guys? You know what I mean? And he should be able to say, I see 3 here, here, here. Okay. I go, you know,
Right, you flank, yeah.
right? It's okay. We improvise. We do hand signals. And then eventually, you adapt by learning a common language, and then you've overcome. So
Yes.
so that question didn't really. Do they need to learn about the context of different ages before, in order being able to communicate properly?
Right. This is something that you and me had talked about. Is one of the tools that we're going to use, if you can call it a tool, is Lucius and the Elemental Knights meet in the very beginning of the book. They meet this giant robot who happens to be just a shell that there's a mech driver in it. And the mech driver comes out, and just those two being on opposite ends of the spectrum time-wise, anything that Lucius needs to know about a particular time period, he can learn from her. So she's, you know, it's funny because I wrote her as kind of a throwaway character. Now she's become important. She plus her robot companion, the mech that she's in, they are a storehouse full of knowledge. I mean, this computer knows everything as far as history is concerned. And so they're connected to each other. So basically she's a walking computer.
Yeah. So, and that, I mean, maybe some customs and things like that, but you know, that stuff gets,
Right.
that stuff you learn very quickly. What are you upset about?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, fine. Right? I mean, let's see here. Can an educated person from the medieval times be taught to our level of science without getting insane immediately when seeing flying machines and talking handhelds? Maybe.
Well, I mean, it depends. The Elemental Knights, especially Lucius, has seen some shit that most humans have never seen, because he was involved in a battle between goblins and elves and centaurs and you name it. They were all there, and he's seen dragons, and he's seen seen that they can breathe fire. He's seen all of this stuff. He's seen people change from being human, turning themselves into wolves, into giant birds, into bears. You know, he's seen a lot of this stuff. So not a lot of things disturb him. Not a lot of things disturb Paul, because Paul's seen that stuff too. But a normal human from Normandy at the time that they were there, suddenly seeing a guy with a gun would probably freak them out.
To an extent. So my thing is kind of going back to the military thing too, because yeah, like a normal person probably, but once you tell them, I mean, like a sword would have made a caveman freak out.
Yeah.
So it's all relative.
Especially, I mean,
it's all relative, right?
take a guy who was a blacksmith in the Bronze Age. He was working with the only metal that he knew of, and you suddenly show him,
Steel,
iron,
yeah.
steel.
Well, there's a great movie.
He would freak the hell out.
There was a great movie. It was about Egypt, and it was the Egyptian. And they all have bronze swords.
Correct.
And this guy brings a steel sword, an iron sword, to them and says, "We need these." And they're like, "What do you mean we need these?" He goes, "Strike me with your sword." And he goes, "But I'll kill you." He goes, he holds up the iron sword and goes, "Strike me with it as hard as you can." And as he goes, his sword gets cut in two.
Right.
And they're just all stand in amazement, Sure. Ah! Oh wait, I want one of those.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like in the story, there's a bunch of samurai who fight an android, like a Terminator type of character, and after defeating them, I had the samurai picking up the android's gun. Like, this was the killing machine that he was using.
Mm-hmm.
And he shoots it, and it puts a hole, like a big old hole in the wall, in a wood beam. He sticks that down. he puts that in where his swords were, you know what I mean? He instantly recognized that's a weapon.
Right.
Puts it in his sword, and then I love my samurai movies. I love my Yojimbo and stuff like that. And I can just see him putting in, and he puts his arms inside his sleeves, and you hear that dun 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 as he walks out the place. It's just like, can we see that? I want to see that animated or something. That'd be such a
There's
cool
no
thing.
doubt in my mind that if we were to meet an alien species and they had whatever weapons they were using against us, and we were actually in a war with some alien species, that we would steal their shit in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah.
I mean, as far as I know, the military has actually, the government has actually admitted that we have not of this world, that's the words that they used, spacecraft that we've been studying, and we still can't figure out how it works.
Right.
But I mean, that's a big news release that nobody seems to give a shit about.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that. We've been studying these aircraft forever, and
they do that, and then Trump creates Space Force, and then the big people just mock him and make fun of him for it. And it's like, well, it must have been for a reason.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, unless there's just a way to funnel money somewhere they didn't want people to know about, but
right.
I don't know. It's just, but okay.
Next question.
Can an educated person of our time be taught to a level which Arthur C. Clarke addressed as magic from our point of view? That one is tough, but after Harry Potter, you think there wouldn't be people lined up to actually become Harry Potter?
Well,
if you could see, it's like, well, you see him do it.
right.
It's like, well, if you can do it, I want to do it.
Right.
And I understand what you're saying. I understand a logical person says, that's just science. How is he doing it scientifically?
Mm-hmm.
When you say you have to give into a will or into a belief in order to make it happen. And today's time period, we're like, no, it's just science.
Mm-hmm.
But come on, after Harry Potter and stuff, people would be, they'd be rushing for that job.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's just it. I mean, just like anything else, when you see it, you immediately want to know how it works. And yes, they're definitely going to be modern soldiers that see Lucius do some fucking cool thing and wonder, how did he just do that?
And can I do it with an AR?
You're right. Can I keep my gun?
Uh-huh. Let's see, I can get this a little bit closer. And wouldn't that cause a chain of events which ends the war? At the same moment, one person dies because of the sheer chain of exponentially culminating temporal dependencies.
Huh?
Oh, wait. I missed one.
Oh, okay.
If a person dies in that war, having his or her son in the same war,
Ah.
will the son vanish as well because of the temporal consequences?
Yeah, it's funny because you were talking to me on the phone when we were read these before, and in that particular, you know, the going back to Einstein, and he talked about that the same person can't exist in the same space or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Time cop.
That whole thing from Time Cop, etc. Yeah. In this particular story, you know, there's one of the problems that I had is, you know, let's say that there's a soldier who was a soldier in the Korean War, and he was a soldier in the World War II. You know, those were fairly close together, so it's a possibility to, you know, age through those.
And even into Vietnam.
Into Vietnam.
Because what's his name from We Were Soldiers?
Right.
Was in all three.
But the way that I wrote the story, the rules that I stuck to, that I made for myself was, there's only one guy, and it's at his, I guess you could say his peak, his, you know, so in that particular instance, that guy that lived through World War I, World War II, or World War One, or not World War, World War II, Korean War, and then Vietnam, he would be in Vietnam. It's his older self.
Mm.
So that's the rule that I wrote. I mean, that's not in the book anywhere.
And if he
It's just
dies,
in
he
my head.
dies. If his kid, you know, if he dies, his kid doesn't vanish.
Right.
I think the idea what we're talking about is time is done. It's shattered. Now, the only difference though that I was coming up with my, is it only military people or is it everybody that got transferred?
Well, the way that I wrote the RPG, the original RPG, I wanted a story where you could be anybody.
Right. No, I mean
So
civilians.
if you
Okay.
were, so, I mean, I used wars as the thing because Len wants people that are in conflict, people that are dying, so he can suck out their souls or whatever. But there's civilians in war, and so if you, because I remember when I guess you could call it beta testing. When I beta tested this role-playing game, I had a group of friends, and we actually did a small campaign. A buddy of mine, Tyler, he wanted to be a Eskimo fisherman because like I was telling him, is I wanted to create a game where you could be anybody, and he wanted to test that theory, and so he just pulled out of his ass the most obscure thing he could think of. So he was Eskimo.
Right. So to me, it. Well, and so I guess the real question though is.
But if this became a video game, I just don't know how you would do something like that.
Right. Well, that's some of the logistics of it that has broken my head to a degree. Is because then, like, even in the area where Lucius and them elemental knights meet up with the German soldiers, is it still farmland in the future, or is it all houses?
Gotta be farmlands still, even in the future.
Doesn't have to be.
'Cause, well, how do you get food in the future?
Well, yeah, but that didn't have to be. I mean, look, Manhattan was farms and ranches and cattle.
Yep.
And now, so, I guess I'm just saying there's going to be a lot of people crammed into one spot very quickly.
In some spots, yeah.
And so,
Because, like, you just take all the wars in the Middle East, and, all of those wars smashed together. There was a lot of wars that had fought there from the beginning of time. And so, yeah, that's going to be a very busy place as far as all of those different soldiers from different times suddenly thrust together.
right.
So, yeah,
Okay.
it's some places will be very busy.
Yeah, and wouldn't that cause a chain of events which ends the war at the same moment one person dies? Because of the sheer chain of. So if this person died, then that person would have spawned this person, would spawn that person, blah, 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 blah.
No.
But,
Simple answer. No, please don't do that.
well, yeah, because that person no longer is existing in their time.
Right.
So then there wouldn't be a. But you should be able to have a hell of a family reunion.
Yeah. And it's funny because, I don't know whether to. I kind of lost my train of thought there, but I was thinking about, time travel theory anyway. I'm more of on the board of, when things change, it doesn't make that past just disappear. I'm more of the multiverse type of person, the way I think of it. But, so something changing doesn't necessarily, change that particular timeline. It just starts an alternate timeline.
A new time, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Fighting implies a certain understanding of scientific principles and laws. Does this exclude early civilizations who had some wrong understanding of nature or the universe? No, it probably just means they're screwed.
Could you repeat that whole damn thing again?
Fighting implies a certain understanding of scientific principles and laws.
Right.
Does this exclude early civilizations
When we were hitting each other with sticks?
who had excuse me, who had some wrong understanding of nature or the universe? I'm assuming maybe what does that mean? Like they put their trust in God,
Because
and or does that mean
the thing that makes, in my opinion, man,
what is fighting implies certain understanding of scientific principles? A fist is a fist.
right?
A club is a club. I don't know about that one.
Because man, has used tools forever. That's what makes man.
Yeah.
Is the ability to make tools and use them.
You give a caveman a elephant gun and tell him to go shoot a woolly mammoth. He'd probably be pretty happy. Or 50 BMG.
Mm-hmm.
And show him how to use it. He'd probably be like, "You mean we don't have to lose 3 people
Yeah.
taking down a woolly mammoth?" Let's see. And since I say nobody can give an objective view on the universe, doesn't this exclude everyone taking part in that war, or it never happens?
I'm not exactly sure.
Was the only thing that had I called into was how does he know when wars were happening to shatter time, or does he just
Len, you mean?
Len? Yeah,
Because he's been to all of them.
right. Which was my thing is how did he go into the future? Because if you can only go on somebody's timeline,
Right.
then
You can go forward in their timeline.
well, how could you go forward if they haven't lived it?
Fate?
Fate? I don't know about that one. That one,
Because I mean, if everybody has a timeline of when they live and when they die, then yes, you're right, and they could die that next second, but that's the way it works. I mean, in the rules that I have is people are fated to die this time, this day, blah blah blah.
oh. Well, I was thinking the only way that I could see happen is what happens if you live to 2060, I live to 2050.
Mm-hmm.
But he traveled along my timeline at my time, but jumps from me over to you because you go longer.
Well, no, I mean, he would just go all the way forward
Yeah.
to when you die, and then find a new person, maybe younger, and travel along there to the future.
I guess, yeah. So I didn't
So
know.
it's basically jumping from person to person.
Right. Sure. Clearly, time traveling must have been discovered before being able to time travel. This only can mean that the war only can take place in the very last moment of time, because somebody might have heard about it if you lived in the time after that war. This means he knows how it ended and you wouldn't take part. Because being alive after the war means it ended in a way which led to his existence. Taking part in the war risks his existence, which would cause the war never to happen, which then consequently negates his existence, which leads back to the last moment of the time everywhere things ended. Only this last moment can, the moment where this last war will be started. But time ends at the war exists for an infinitely short moment of time only. Well, that's only. But we talked about it. It's
The only
it's a
person
new timeline. This he's not pulling. He's pulling people from a different timeline into a new timeline.
Right. He's pulling them from.
It's Star Trek 2009. It's a new timeline. Yeah, the new remakes of the Star Trek movies.
Oh, okay.
They call it 2009.
Oh, okay. You're talking about the J.J. Abrams
Yeah, the Abrams.
remakes. Yeah. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I love Abrams, by the way. I don't know if he gets enough credit.
He's all right. I think he has a time travel crutch that he tries to use in his as plot hole fixing, because he seems not to end things very well, and he always seems to try to use time travel to. Maybe it's just me, but
I liked Super 8.
Super 8 was alright. I expected Super 8.
It was just a breath of fresh air to have a brand new standalone story that didn't have to do with anything else.
That's true, but I expected it to be Stranger Things.
Yeah,
I expect
but that's the Duffer Brothers.
right, but I expected Super 8 to be a nostalgic throwback
Mm-hmm.
that Stranger Things was.
Right.
And I think he was trying to make it, but it just didn't land. I don't.
Well, there was a
For
lot.
me, there was
There was a
something.
lot of action. You have to have moments of, to go back in or to do that, time warp. Reliving the past type stuff. Where you're looking at all that pop culture. You have to have time where there's not anything like blowing up and stuff. And the Super 8, it was kind of action packed there, and a lot of it.
Yeah,
So
I was hoping for a little more.
I just was happy to see something that was brand new. I also liked, but I don't know. Was Abrams the one that did Cloverfield, or was that somebody else?
I thought he did Cloverfield.
But Cloverfield was good too, and that Cloverfield Lane. I don't know if that was him or not.
He produced it.
The one that John Goodman did such a good job in that.
No, that was that Danny Trachtenberg I was telling you about.
Yeah, he's good.
He directed that one.
It was really good.
From the Totally Rad Show.
What's the next question?
That was it.
That was it? That was all the questions?
Yeah, he says, I am pausing for a moment because a circle closes here. This reminds me of a tiny piece of sci-fi prose I wrote many years ago, which ends with the end of the universe. And then he gave me a link to it, but I went to link, there was nothing there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but yeah, I think you can solve a lot of his questions just by saying this outcome won't be their outcome.
Right.
And we've been kicking around the idea whether or not putting the time back.
Oh, no, I mean,
We don't know.
We've been kicking it around, but I've pretty much come to the conclusion that, because when I wrote the story, all the story was supposed to be was to establish this world and this universe and the rules around it, and to put it back. Yes, it creates a happy ending for the characters in the book, but it doesn't create a happy ending for me.
Right.
I want that world. I want it to exist. I want it to stay that way. As fucked up as it is, where you can find towns where there's shapeshifters running around killing people. That's what I want, is I want to create that world so it can become more video games, it can become RPGs, it can become all of these things.
That's the monster of the week. No, his group is collecting people, but they're going from place to place,
Right.
killing Len's lieutenants that were left behind.
Because I don't know if we should call them lieutenants as much as we should call them high priests.
High priests, yeah.
Because he's been traveling through time this entire time.
It's close because they'll be high priests in a military.
Right.
I don't know what that's called, but
structure.
Yeah, because in a religious theological structure, you'd almost be.
Because there's still rankings. Yeah, you're right. But yeah.
Yeah.
But I like that. I like the term high priest better than lieutenant. Because it's all about faith for them.
You start merging into a brigadier high priest.
That's funny. Brigadier high priest.
Major. But you could almost call you could call one a brigadier general, but that's like a high priest of the third order. You could call a deacon a major. You could have
what's it called?
a bishop's a
there's
captain.
a bishop, a cardinal.
Well,
I think I have to look all this stuff.
Well,
up.
there's just those are cardinals Catholicism, but in general, but even I think deacons, bishops, and things like it's kind of like universal, but but they don't have those same terms. That's why you'd almost have to create. That's why a high priest is not specifically Christian. It's just religious.
Right.
So you'd have, maybe we'd have to look up some old Conan stuff and see what they kind of rank things as. You had Tulsa Doom, was your prophet, your whatever. Then you had your high priest underneath him, and then you had your disciples, obviously, and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, we'd have to figure out something there, but that's kind of cool. I love that idea. I love the idea of them going and killing the monster of the week, and then each one of them is so... Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean...
we could really have some fun with that.
A lot of times, you know, the more we talk about this, the more I think that, you know, we could have the 8 books that we originally planned on, but we could also have standalone issues, small comic books, you know, like we were saying on the phone to each other. It's funny when I'm working on writing the 4 original novels and getting those edited and all that kind of stuff. And that's just a linear story that ends where time shatters, really. And I like I said, that feels like a movie. And the graphic novel, the way I wrote the script and the way it keeps on, you know,
growing
that we keep talking about, feels more like a TV show, or it could be a TV show.
Yeah.
Where, like you said, there's a monster of the week or whatever that they have to defeat or whatever, on the way to trying to...
Monster of the week, small quest.
Right.
Type of thing, you know, and...
saving somebody.
Yeah, 10 episodes over 8 years. 10 episodes a season, 8 years, or even 8 episodes probably work even better. Over 8 years, oh, that'd be a lovely little thing. No, I see that so much clearer now. I can see a way to get almost within book 2 or at the end of book 2 with you thought it was going this way and now it's this. And it's not such a hard shift. You're like, how the heck we get over here? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, okay, here's the universe, but almost like, actually, you could probably do it within book 1 without having to do a lot of some of the extraordinary stuff. And then some of the stuff that we had in book 1 could then get translated over to book 2, just augmented. So you could go to the samurais, but you could go to the samurais in the future. His band was hunting an android manhunter, and then this group pairs up with his group to go after him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's how we meet Mariah.
Right.
He just wouldn't be old samurai, he'd be new samurai. He probably would already have.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know if we want to do that, though.
Kind of fucked in the head, samurai, because he just watched all his friends die.
Right. Yeah, but they died. They died in war, so he's happy for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a good death. But yeah.
But you have a samurai. You take you take old samurai, and I think where you really screwed most of them up was when you turned them into ronins. You know, unless they wanted to be one, but to be taken out of it specifically, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
not have anybody to serve.
Well, he'll find a group to serve eventually.
So that would be kind of interesting. I think that'd be kind of cool. All right.
Yeah, but like I said, the more we talk, you know, besides the fun of
The stranger the book gets.
No, not stranger. I mean, because we're still following the rules,
Yeah.
but it gets longer.
It does get a little bit longer. What I like though is it gets into the actual role playing game that you originated.
Yes.
And the more that we can have different people fight in different ways, you know, stuff. And I even like the idea of the whole, you know, with Magic the Gathering, it wasn't always just one card against one card.
No.
You know, you had what, 6 cards laid out? You had 6 cards?
Right. There
I
was
think. I don't know. I've never played really.
Right.
I've only watched.
There is a strategy to the whole thing.
But yeah, so it's not like it always has to be Lucius against the bad guy. It can be the group
Right.
against their group, this other group, and it's how the combination works against that combination, which can make for some really exciting battles, and you know.
Well, if you
And
think
if you-
about it, you know, talking about a high priest, you know, we could really make those characters badass.
Oh yeah. Well, they have to be. I mean, that's, you know, you watch these anime, and you'll have a group of characters, like 6 or 7 of a team, and they'll go up against one bad guy with his little entourage. And the entourage usually can be pretty formidable, but they usually get rid of them. But the one bad guy would beat all of them in a 1-to-1 fight.
Right.
But they have to band together to beat the one bad guy. Or something. Or at least get him down to the point where one person can then take him out.
Because if you think about it, a guy, let's jump out of that world. You're a normal dude in a church, and you're approached by Len, and he tells you that there's that he's a part of another church, and that he's actually God incarnate, whatever you want to call it, and he convinces you to come and attend the church, and during these church services over your lifetime, you learn all of these things about the human body and how he can, you can manipulate your energy, and he basically teaches you all these things, and then he has you teach the next people and the next people. So if you think about it, that high priest, that guy who is now a high priest of this church, he's been doing it all his life. And these people that he's now meeting in this shattered time, he has an advantage over them.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, if he ran into an elf who also had been doing it their entire life and they live longer, he might have a disadvantage against that guy. But yeah, I mean,
only a small disadvantage. But
right.
you take somebody who, watching Rogan's show, he has people on so many different. He's had a couple ex-Navy SEALs on, and he had one guy who said he has met the best people he's ever met in the world have been in the SEALs.
Yeah.
But he said he's also met the most horrible people, like not just, but evil. You know what I mean? Like like the exact flip side.
Mm-hmm.
He's like the most evil thing he's met in those groups too. Now take that guy and turn him into a high priest.
Right.
So now you got an operator who now knows how to do magic and then gets augmented
Mm-hmm.
with some crazy stuff. You know what I mean? It could be. I mean, the combinations are staggering, and then you're really up against it. And so you have your little band of guys, and you have Lucius, who's a great magician, but maybe he's not a great operator.
Right.
No, but you have somebody like Mariah, who's a great operator, but maybe he's not a great magician.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he really can't, because he created the Elemental Knights, and they're all kind of new and rushed into the training.
Mm-hmm.
I decided in my drawing of them that maybe ones are really good at fire, but not so good at earth.
Right.
You know, and so maybe some of them do have shoes on because they really can't figure out how to get the earth stuff to get going. And so their feet are cold all the time, so they wear shoes, you know what I mean?
Right.
Some are not good at the fire, blah, 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 blah. And so, it's just, the possibilities are staggering. And I think we could make some really fun adventures.
Oh, yeah.
And visually, it should be great.
The more we talk about it, the more exciting it is. Because, I can visualize all this stuff in my head. And, yeah, it's...
And the new playground each time in a different
Mm-hmm.
part of the world that's now changed. I mean,
Right.
the amount of mass destruction that will happen within the first month, you'll have, I don't know how many people just die from explosions, from bombs dropping.
I have a question.
You'll have mass killing, and then you'll have billions of people sitting there, and there ain't going to be enough food.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's going to be a lot of death, dying, and there's just going to be just like these remnants of humanity left over, kind of trying to piece things back together.
Well, yeah, there's going to have to be people that turn from soldiers into farmers. That's just the way, it's a need. But I know what I was just thinking about was completely off that subject, but still on the subject of Shattered Time. That group, you got Lucius, Paul, Stellic Stern, all of those people that he has in his core group, and then he's out searching for other people. Well, and also the mech drivers there. My question is how should they get from point A to point B? I mean, are they using the mech?
Are they walking?
Are they
walking?
using
the mech?
Are they using the mech? Are they using horses? Are they using a car?
Did they cannibalize the mech and make it into a vehicle?
That's my question. Is what should we do there? Because that'd be a fun part of the story just by itself.
Well, see that's in my kind of, here's the passage of time, and then you can have this 75 years later, and all this stuff is so war torn.
Mm-hmm.
That you have these little pockets of humanity now, but to get from one place to the next place, you're going through, for lack of horrible cliche sci-fi, through the Badlands.
Mm-hmm.
But you have Len, who's now this roaming, not Len, but Lucius, this roaming guy,
Mm-hmm.
in his garb, his beautiful robes are now torn, and most of it's all replaced and with other stuff. But I had him walking for the most part. But
the thing is she's not going to give up her mech. Her mech is part of her.
Right.
So I mean,
The question though is,
you have a bunch of normal people walking through the desert, and you see this big shadow behind them.
but can she keep it powered?
I never really thought about the power source of that thing, but as far as I can tell, it's perpetual.
Not only that, but what is her weapon made at? What weapons shoot? Does it shoot hard projectile or energy projectile?
I was thinking hard projectile.
So then,
She has to run out of ammo eventually, yeah.
is the gun just laying in somewhere?
Right. Somebody could gut that thing and live in it as a house.
Yeah. So I
That
mean,
thing's huge.
so then, what was the point of her having the mech?
Well, because
I mean, she can still fight in it.
the way that I wrote it was she's still connected to that computer.
Right.
But there is no saying that she couldn't, like you said, cannibalize the damn thing and turn it into a vehicle, to where they could, because she would still be connected to it,
Mm-hmm.
and now she has a vehicle that she can
It's Kit.
summon.
It's Kit.
Yes. Hello, Michael. We'll put a thing on the front of the vehicle. Zoom, 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 zoom.
She's a Cylon.
Oh God. But that's an entire volume all by itself, huh? That'd be a kind of a fun story.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Because I was just thinking, maybe, because that's pretty far in the future, and I'm wondering if technology, because my opinion that eventually we're going to have a technology to where we control things on a molecular level, and we can have things change shape. Imagine the liquid metal guy from Terminator 2. Basically that thing is, controlling itself on a molecular level. It can change into whatever it wants. I'm wondering if I should have something like that.
Well, you can, but
then again, that makes things even more powerful,
in certain areas, I think what would be interesting is that you have your town, the old West town, or the shapeshifters or whatever, but it's like not everywhere bounce back the same, or even some things are so differently. Some things are alien controlled.
Mm-hmm.
Some places are more futuristic looking. Some places are old.
Controlled.
Yeah, robot controlled.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
In fact, I think it'd be kind of interesting to open up the second book with Lucius walking, and they're all meeting up at Jesse's bar.
Well, yeah, I mean, with,
and then from there they
with
figure out what
Lucius,
they're going to
he
do.
has to, he's going to gather the people he knows best first. That's where he's going to run into Paul and Stelly Stern, and yes, so he, because that's the one thing you can say is universal for, for people is you go where you know.
Right.
When you're lost or whatever, when the shit hits the fan and the world is about to end, you usually will go to, those core people, and so I think that's written in there somewhere already, as he goes to talk to Mikno, and he goes to talk to all those different people.
Right.
So, yeah.
I don't know. Do they drive a big giant semi RV, or is it just a Winnebago?
But yeah,
A Winnebago.
with wings.
If it was super comic booky, you'd have this.
Lone Star.
You'd have this picture of. You'd start with like Lucius, but it really should be Mariah. You know, he's got his eyes closed, and you can tell he's like meditating. He span out, and he's, you know, cross-legged, whatever, sitting there meditating. No, his hair's flapping in the wind. And as you move out farther, he's sitting on the top of the Winnebago as they're going through the desert type thing. That's such a comic book shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Super eccentric.
But it's definitely a good question. Is what they should be driving.
Iron horses.
Or you could do just something simple and have that damn mech carrying a big box full of people.
Well, I thought about her like pulling a wagon,
Funny.
walking, pulling a wagon with them in the wagon. On a rope, you know. Dum, 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 dum.
Big chain from a frickin'
Oh no!
battle carrier.
What it is it's you see them, and they're all interacting, and you go out and you see that he's sitting on the bridge of like a yacht type of nice, like big, huge yacht.
a boat or something.
But no, not like a nice luxury yacht,
Mm-hmm.
not giant one, but a good sized one where they all can have their own quarters and they can actually, you know. And as you keep going farther out, it's the mech. It's got it's on wheels,
And they're dragging.
and
through the desert.
she's walking with it
Because you
with,
can do the
with
same.
ropes.
Because I was thinking about the same thing, but not necessarily a boat or anything. Just a, you know, you see a scene where they're all just sitting there talking and they're, you know, in a house, you know, just sitting around a table or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, he goes and he stares out the window contemplating things, and you see that the world is going past, you know, and then it shows the outside, and yes, you know, it's either one house or many houses on a big, huge platform on wheels being pulled by a fucking.
Except that's the way a book should open, right?
That's actually a really good scene. Do. Actually, that's not bad at all. I mean,
The boat. Or motorhomes, or what about motorhomes?
Right.
Not motorhomes, but mobile homes stacked.
right? I mean, it could be a lot of different things, but yeah.
But you kind of need them on platform.
Yeah, just to some kind of.
But a boat would allow you just to put some bunch of wheels underneath it and just kind of,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're kind of up away from things and.
Mm-hmm. That's funny. That's definitely worth a thought. And you know, because it's just ridiculous enough, but at the same time, it still has that science fiction angle. I like it. You know, instead of turning the mech into something, just using the mech.
Well, then you'd almost be like just jumping right into the shattered world.
Mm-hmm.
Because that would be an opening. That'd be a crazy opening.
Well, I don't know if I'd necessarily use it as an opening, but yeah.
All right, that'd be that.
I mean, not for book one, but for like book two.
I don't know. Book one would be amazing. That would be a hook of an opening.
I think it already has a good enough one, but I mean, book two, book three, or whenever it is that they start traveling, because I think book one and book two are mostly about them stopping combat and starting to normalize.
But see,
And then book three,
my thing is by book three, you would be like, that's kind of funny. But book one, you'd be like,
what the hell?
what the eight? You know what I mean? What the hell? Yeah, you'd be like, what? what's this world? I have to know more about this.
Yeah.
A mech, or even the opposite way. Instead of pulling it like a wagon, she'd be pushing. But pulling it like a wagon is much better.
It looks cuter.
Yeah.
It looks,
Dum
I
dum
mean-
dum 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 dum.
hell, if you could have the mech skipping, that'd be even better.
What you do? You have Lucius up there doing his like meditation or whatever, or doing his tai chi, you know, and you span out and you see the boat and you see the ocean, you know, and
Right.
all this stuff, and then then like a bunch of dust. And, damn it! Stop! You know, and then you see she's skipping along the beach, whatever, picking up dust,
That's fun.
dirt.
That's genius.
And you think he's out in the ocean, but they're just
They're on the beach.
on the beach.
Sand everywhere.
Yeah.
You're getting sand in my eyes.
Or like going past the Great Salt Lake
Mm.
type thing, you know.
Yeah.
That would be that's a hell of a hook.
Yeah.
I mean, that is science fiction-y fiction, and you're thrown right into the world. And then there's some exposition of how we got that way, where they're going,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get thrown right into fighting. And you don't even have to do any of that. You've established the passage of time. You've established the world right off the bat.
Yeah.
I don't know. That'll be up to you. Which we pass it by some other people is what we need to do. So if you watch this and you're viewing it, please comment.
It's definitely
on
a
the
good
bottom.
scene. It's definitely a good scene, but I don't know if I'd open a book with it.
I don't know. That seems awful.
But yeah,
That seems awful. Like that might be hard to match.
but I'm just trying to figure out, because like you said, a boat would be good,
A battleship,
but
because then they'd have weapons.
right. I'm just trying to think of just trying to think of what would be the best thing that she could be dragging. That'd be.
Well, the reason I use the boat is because it's self-contained.
Right.
The problem with houses, you have to put them on a platform.
Right.
And so how do you put them on a platform
Mm-hmm.
that she can still, a bunch of trailers,
Right.
flatbeds, but then
Yep.
whereas if you had you had a truck stuffed on two Tonka trucks, those two just pulling, two like big huge bulldozer type trucks.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they could support that much weight.
Yeah, I'm just trying to. Still a good scene. I'm just trying to think of all the logistics. So. Anyway, but that would be cool, because because once he has his core group, he then and he knows what his mission is as far as collecting people. Yeah, it's just a matter of them getting on the road, or lack of road. I'm sure there's roads. Yeah, but I think the bigger the thing, the better.
What they live in?
Yes.
Oh.
because they have to have room for this unknown amount of people.
The Ark.
Mm-hmm. Anyway.
Unless they do it like in, you do just a scaled up version with the Ark is like a big, huge land moving vehicle,
Mm-hmm.
and then you just have the mech sitting like in the trunk, with its feet hanging over, just sitting. Aw.
What I'm thinking is, it'd be neat if there was something that they run across that would be like a bunker that's half buried into a mountain or something like that. And she hooks a chain onto that fucking thing and just yanks it out of the ground. With the help of Lucius, because he can control that kind of stuff too.
I was gonna say, I don't know if she's that strong.
And just yank that thing right out. That'd be cool. So how many hours have we killed?
An hour and a half.
That's it? Wow. I thought we'd been talking longer.
No.
But the good news is we've been talking more about the story and everything versus just random bullshit.
Just random tangents. We do some good tangents.
But sometimes I wonder, because I think that the world that's been created is really cool as far as, I wonder if other people that are listening to this can see it.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Hopefully, I always frame it with, think of every science fiction fantasy
mm-hmm.
thing you grew up that you loved just smashed into one thing. And I think people can see that. Shoot, that, what was that, Ninja Fury? Little short movie somebody did just a few years ago. It was all 80s style. Oh, something Fury.
It was, but it was just, there was some, the movie was a bunch, they were just fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. And it felt kind of like a video game.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But it was just total 80s nostalgia type of
right. It's kind of like
thing.
Scott Pilgrim almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I remember that.
It's kind of, it's what it kind of feels like at times. It's just
Yeah.
mash it up and have fun.
Right. Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to think of, it is kind of funny when you think about science fiction, and all the stuff that we've written as humans. We've written all these different things. There's a great big chunk of it that does come from the 80s and 90s and etc. that are standing the test of time as far as I think even in the future people will look back at the Terminator and Predator and think that was groundbreaking and
Aliens.
amazing. Alien, yeah. And,
Yeah. Those will be the things that other things will be built upon.
right.
Although, you really go back to, Terminator is a lot like, is it The Day the Earth Stood Still? Is that not?
The Day the Earth Stood Still is that one that Keanu Reeves remade that there's a big robot that's going to destroy the world. And
Yeah.
there's also his character that is kind of the mouthpiece for the aliens, and basically we're begging him to not kill us.
Yeah, Natu Fratu, whatever his name is.
Right.
Yeah. But you go back to the original version of that, and it was very, because of the day, it wasn't mayhem, action, you know. But Terminator was almost that to a degree. So,
Yeah.
and it's amazing how many movies you find out were remakes of remakes of remakes. And you're like, what?
Right.
You gotta be kidding me. That was a remake?
Well, yeah.
Like that, what was the one that Bradley Cooper and the singer just did?
I don't remember.
Lady Gaga.
Right, I know who you're talking
I
about.
can't remember the name.
But that was a remake of a Barbra Streisand movie. Yeah.
Which was a remake of a Judy Garland movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that
I didn't know
that I was like, what? That's a remake of what? I thought that was the original, though, with Chris
Right.
Christopherson and Barbra Streisand. But it's like, oh my gosh. And then I watched this great movie one night on Amazon Prime. It was called She, which was a remake of a remake, which was really surprising because it was from 1934
Damn.
or 1940. It was, but it had a young, very, very young Gary Cooper, like one of the very first things he ever did.
Wow.
And but the fascinating thing is because he goes down this underground world where there's like these, it's like a Amazon, like city of Amazon, these women and but it was women dressed in sheer lace with like jewelry, and they stood, and everything was giant pillars and staircases, and it was like, oh my gosh, it was a Frank Frazetta. It was like you can see right in this one movie his whole career after. You know, it's like he must have seen that as a kid or something. It's like, because it's like that looks just like one of his paintings. It was fascinating. It was I loved it. That's one of those movies I want to track down and buy.
Because there's movies that I think would be great if they would remake them, just because the technology wasn't that great when they made it. But then there's some movies that I hope they never touch. You know, because I'd hate for them to ever remake Terminator. You know,
They tried.
who?
Well, I mean, they keep adding things to reboot the series.
Well, yes, I know, but I mean,
I know they're not considering reboots, but they're reboots,
but the original,
and they can't just
you know,
Yeah,
Terminator when he like, there's so many great scenes in that movie. Because to me, you know, the overall arcing story is great. You know, very well written. I loved it. But it's some of those, just the scenes, like when he's in the gun store and he's asking for different guns, and it's like, so, you know, what else can I get for you? Uzi 9mm. And plus, you know, his accent just worked for that robot. And then he's like, anything else? He's like, phase plasma rifle in a 40-watt range. And he's like, just what you see, pal. and he's loading that shotgun, and he's like, hey, you can't do that. Boom. You know, and then my favorite scene of Terminator is when he knocks on that door, and she opens up, and he's like, Sada Kana. She's like, yes. Hits that door so hard, you see the chain bust off, and it swings open like it's nothing, and he pulls out that long slide with that laser on it. And then he shoots her like 9 times on the ground. That is the best scene ever. I mean, I know that they were trying to make a horror movie, but it's never been a horror movie for me. It's always been a science fiction thing, but that was awesome.
Yeah, I could see them trying to reboot it with Senna, Paul Senna, Mike Senna, whatever his name is.
Right. John Cena. Yeah.
John Cena, yeah, the new Rock,
Dun.
the new Rock.
I don't know if I would ever consider him the new Rock.
Well, he's the new muscle-bound guy
Yeah.
for this generation. You know what I mean?
Luckily, they've been throwing him into a lot of comedies
Oh
because
gosh,
I think he's good at it.
he was great when he come in that the Mark Wahlberg one.
Mm-hmm.
That was hilarious.
Well, it's funny because in did you ever see the hell's that Trainwreck? With what's her name? The comedian, I can't remember her name. Schumer, Amy Schumer. Did you ever see that?
Oh no.
Well, in that she plays his boyfriend or her boyfriend in that, and she's in the, you know, because she
Oh,
sleeps.
maybe I did see that.
She sleeps.
Yeah.
She sleeps
Is that the
around.
one
a lot.
LeBron James is in?
Yes.
Yeah.
But there's that one scene where they're together at a movie theater, and he says something to her, and this guy, and you know, a few rows away, says, "Hey, Mark Wahlberg, shut up." And he's like, "Mark Wahlberg, he's like 180 pounds. I'm like somebody ate Mark Wahlberg."
Mark Wahlberg, yeah.
But yeah, that's I don't know. That sounds funny. But yeah, I mean.
But there's classics. I mean, I don't think they're need to do anything with Starship Troopers. I think that's
I thought that was a great world.
it was a great flick. I mean, I don't think they need to. You know, you could do another,
Story.
but there's a lot of things. I mean, just look what they did with Clash of the Titans. That should have been. I saw that when I was a little kid, and that's been one of those. That was high concept for me at the time.
I was damn young.
My brother, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
Was it my brother that took me to see that? I think we saw that and Rocky 4.
Good movie.
Or I remember we went and saw one. We went and saw it in combination with it, and because he was a big fantasy, he read all the Tolkien stuff growing up and things like that. And he's read things like the Lensmen and series and what's the Scott something, the guy from here.
Orson Scott Card.
Yeah, his stuff with
Yeah.
and all that stuff. So he took me when I was real young to go see Clash of Titans, and that was just that was awesome. I used to love watching Jason Argonauts when he's fighting the skeletons and things like that. And
Yeah.
so I understand their want to remake things. It's amazing how they have this feeling of how they have to overindulge things or overcomplicate things, and you don't have to overcomplicate. It's just the movie was great where it was at. Just
Right.
you know, even Lucas understands this part of it. You just need to bump up the resolution and some graphics. You know what I mean? I don't need to change the core story. I don't need to change it. Just
Well, another thing.
add some stuff.
Another thing that I'm happy about is you know, there's some movies that use too much CG,
Mm-hmm.
but I am glad that some of them are using combinations now where it's makeup and CG, you know, and so they don't, you know, and then they build these elaborate sets, so you don't have CG in the set,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I think it looks so much better that way. There's, to me, if you're not building a model of, you know, let's say the Event Horizon or whatever your, you know, ship you're on or whatever, you're doing it wrong. There has to be a model.
Yeah. Well, it's like, what's his name for Die Hard, the fourth one?
Mm-hmm.
He,
When they threw that car at him, and they actually threw the car, and everybody
Yeah.
thought that was CG.
Uh-huh. He's like,
that would piss me off so much.
the logistics to make this happen.
They had to have it on cables. It had to be pulled through the air and land at a precise spot, and they did it.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody.
And then everybody said, "Oh, it's just too much CG, man."
What do you mean? Yeah, that would piss you off, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and I'm really tired of the.
Because that's another thing that Mad Max Fury Road, everything in that, all the stunts were people doing the stunts, and that was really cool.
Oh, Mad Max Fury Road was just.
I mean, they did have to do the CG of that storm and stuff, but other than that, it was awesome.
It was a great flick.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reboot that wasn't a reboot, but it was a reboot, and yet it was awesome. It was really good. I wish they would do another one, but
What?
more Mad Max.
Oh, the Mad Max thing. Well, I think
I love Mad Max.
is George Miller still alive?
Yeah, yeah.
Because
But he's doing other stuff.
but that was really fun to see George Miller come back and do that.
But once you've showed the formula, it's like, I mean, the interesting thing is how the world got introduced over here in America to Road Warrior,
Right.
and then found out about Mad Max, and then watched Thunderdome.
Well, yeah, but the reason that happened is because Mad Max was made in Australia. Well,
Right.
so was Road Warrior, but it was introduced. Road Warrior was a Warner Brothers flick, and Mad Max, I don't know what the company was.
Well, yeah, it was, small, but
Yeah.
but to get introduced in the middle of it, and you found, but the stories are technically different. Is what I'm,
Oh, way different.
is what I'm saying, and so it's like, I don't need to see another, we got to get from here to there. Mad Max. I just want to spend some more time in that universe.
Oh yeah.
I like Mad. I want to spend time. This is gonna sound weird, but I want to spend time with Mad Max,
Mm-hmm.
and not so much just Furiosa.
Right.
And they almost came out and said it was her movie more than his, but I want to learn his Mad Max. That opening scene where he's sitting there peeing,
Mm-hmm.
or just standing there forever,
Mm-hmm.
that lizard and
Right.
stomps on. What's that world where he has to stand out in the blazing hot sun long enough to just get a little morsel to eat?
With Lizard.
Yeah. So.
Right. But yeah, I mean, that's just it. Sometimes I wonder what it is about a movie that I like more. Because, just like everybody else, I love action. Love it. Action's great. People dying, blood splattering everywhere, explosions. But at the same time, one of my favorite things, and I think the one director, writer that reintroduced this, is I love conversation. And it was, I think that's one of the things that Tarantino can point at for the rest of his life, is he reintroduced conversations back into movies. Things that Tarantino, and they were just conversations about nothing, really.
Right.
He reintroduced conversations back. You know what they call just what they call a Big Mac and
Right.
pork pound with cheese in French. You know what they call it's a Royale, But I mean, it's just had nothing to do with the story. Just two characters talking, and just them talking. It's just makes that character seem deeper because you're learning more about their backstories just through a conversation about fucking Amsterdam and McDonald's.
In Bruges.
No, that's a
Uh,
great movie.
beautiful, beautiful film. Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels.
Yes.
If
I mean, there's action in those movies. There's no doubt about it.
there's some,
It's
but
the
it's,
conversation that drives those fucking
Yeah.
stories.
what, you don't think I got the minerals? You don't think I got the fucking bloody minerals? I mean, the way those guys, that banter back and forth, and they try to, he tries to, he's got that formula Guy Ritchie does, but it's lost in some of the later movies. Layer Cake was still good, but it wasn't Lock, Stock, Smoking Barrels. Snatch
Great movie.
could be one of the all-time best. I mean, that movie came out of nowhere, and Brad Pitt is that Pikey,
Mhm.
just, oh my gosh, was just jaw-dropping,
Right.
It's like, what? Great, oh. So, yeah, I love that stuff,
Why didn't you just bust a cap in him, Tommy? I mean, you might as well hit him with that thing. All the good is in it. What, are you saying it doesn't work? I know it doesn't work. Click! Out the window. And he's like, oops. It's like that fucking sneaky Russian.
There's a great movie that somebody will try to reinvent that won't come off as good. But The Saint.
That was a good movie.
That was a really, really good movie. Kilmer had a kind of a philosophy of not redoing characters,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a shame because he really did like creating he really did a great job of flipping his personalities for those different characters he did in the makeup, which was really great.
Well, I mean, I can't, because we have,
Who do you-
7 to 10 actors who've actually played the role of Doc Holliday,
Right.
and I can't put any of them above Val Kilmer, because he did the best job that I've ever seen on that one character.
Well, I think he had the best lines.
Well, yeah, I
But-
mean, I know he didn't
But
write
there's
it,
times when I think that Dennis Quaid, is it Dennis or
Yes,
Randy?
It was
Dennis Quaid,
Right.
because his gentleman's voice.
I know.
To me, that sounds more. His was like
Yeah.
he's a man from Savannah. Is like
Right.
there's something that drew, and so I sometimes wonder. You give him those lines. Why you are
No.
an oak?
My favorite is when he's playing the piano. The guy comes over and he's like, "Is that old dog Trey?" Sounds like old dog Trey to me.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "Pardon?" I love that. I mean, he just sounds drunk. "Pardon?" And he's like, Stephen Foster, "Oh Susanna," "Camptown Races," Stephen Stinkin' Foster. He's like, "Well, this happens to be a nocturne." "What? Frederick fucking Chopin?" That earned him the Academy Award. Just that right there.
Well, I don't know. I still like when he tells her you are an amazing woman.
You might be
You've
the
been
Antichrist.
a great help to me. And she starts playing with him. It's like, but you might also be the Antichrist. I mean,
Right. But I don't know. I mean,
I'm here, Huckleberry.
you
Want to
say-
go? Let's go. Want to go? Let's go.
You say that. Give Dennis Quaid those lines. I don't know.
I'm not. I don't know. I'm just saying. But he had.
'Cause
Those are some showstoppers.
Right. I mean, that's just like asking.
Oh look,
That's just like saying, give Jack Nicholson the same lines that Heath Ledger had. And no, Heath Ledger was a better Joker. Because Jack Nicholson's Joker,
but they were different though.
there,
His was
even though Burton was trying to make it as dark as possible, I didn't find Jack Nicholson's Joker as intimidating or as scary as Heath Ledger.
no, because he was more. They only had Cesar Romero's clown to go off of at that
Right.
time, but Ledger tapped into
A very creepy vibe.
to the psychopath, to you know, it almost reminds me of Seven.
Yeah.
What's his name? Spacey's Seven.
Yes.
You know, when he yells, detectives, you know, when he
Right.
yells at them to pay attention to him, that whole scene where he's slapping that guy, that fake Batman around,
Mm-hmm.
and the way he yells, it's like chills up my, I was just like,
Right.
there was a whole nother mentality of
And
mental
plus, like
disturbance.
when he's like, "Yes, you do," and then he's like, "Shh, shh, 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 shh." It's like, oh my God, I just relived my childhood.
Well, oh, you never start with the head.
Right. They get all dizzy. But I mean, yeah, they.
There was some there. Yeah, I might have to watch that again.
Heath Ledger was perfect.
It was, and
And even like the screw up that everybody talks about, where he comes out of the hospital and half of it blows up, and then it stops. And he turns around and he's looking at it.
mm-hmm.
And he hits the button again and is looking at it, and then it starts to blow up again, and then he leaves.
Mm-hmm.
That's comedy. But yeah, I mean,
Right, but Nicholson's was so just different, and that's what's been great. I really loved that meme that went around that showed that how the different drugs matching the different Jokers that they've had.
I didn't know I'd ever seen this.
Yeah, so the meme was Cesar Romero's from the old Batman TV show
Yeah.
was LSD, right? Jack
That
Nicholson.
whole show was LSD.
Right, but Jack Nicholson was cocaine,
Mm.
Ledger's heroin,
Mm.
and Leto was crack. But it matches. It's amazing how well it matches the different.
I mean, I know that Leto probably doesn't care, but I would have been terrified as an actor to have to follow all of those people.
Oh yeah. Well,
I mean, I know he was trying to put his spin on it, and I don't know if it worked.
it didn't because you didn't get to see the whole spin.
Right,
You saw him take a quarter turn. You didn't get to see the whole 360.
right.
You didn't get to see all the nuance that he must have done to it to make it what it was, because all you saw was
Right.
this disjointed,
Back
you know,
forward.
and then you saw that, and then they did that Birds of Prey movie,
Mhm.
and you're like, that movie was a complete,
Yeah.
oh gosh, that was utter mess. That made no sense. That
No,
movie.
the only thing that I mean, I watched the movie and I enjoyed it because I enjoyed Margot Robbie, but the rest of the story, I could have.
I
given a
didn't
shit.
even enjoy her in it.
You can't stare at Margot Robbie and go, "Oh, I don't enjoy this." It's Margot Robbie.
No, you know, one thing I always used to love watching American Idol back in the day when Simon Cowell was on it,
Right.
because you get this, oh, it was great, oh, it was great, oh, it was great, and then you get the Simon goes, that was so self-indulgent, it was sick.
Right.
That made me just turned off on blah 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 blah. But when he talked about being self-indulgent, It's almost like that. It was so self-indulgent that
Well, yeah.
I didn't care who it was.
Well, because
I didn't care looking at her. Or I didn't care about.
If you remember, that movie's original title was, you know, The Birds of Prey.
Right.
And then they changed it to include Harley Quinn's name in it because she was the only thing decent about that movie, that they had to include her in the title.
Right.
And yes, you're right. I mean, she had established her character, and her character is fun, and so.
But there was
But
no.
to try and use that character to lead an entire movie, it's not something that you should do.
No, because it's supposed to be in the triumphant. It was built upon the comic that Jim Lee did with the Birds of Prey, but it was her, Poison Ivy, and Catwoman
Right.
teaming up, and it was like, and why they even called it Birds of Prey was stupid because she's not a bird.
Right. Well, she's not, but the rest of them had a bird type thing.
And then they got all those characters wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely screwed up on that movie.
horrible.
Did you ever see that movie?
What was that movie? Was it Josh Hartnett that did that one where it was all green screened with Ron Perlman at the end? He had to climb the cheers, fighting all these bad guys. Bruce Willis was in it. Oh gosh, what was that?
movie you're talking about?
It was all colored and crazy.
Because the only thing I can think of that was all green screen that had Bruce Willis in it was Sin City. Clickety click.
IMDb. Filmography. Oh, it was quite a few years ago, so be way down here. Man, it's amazing how much voiceover work this guy's done.
Mm-hmm. I still don't understand the decision to reboot Hellboy.
I still haven't. I tried watching it, but it was too loud one night, and so I didn't. I still haven't seen it.
The new one?
Yeah.
It's okay. But Ron Perlman's Hellboy is so much better. Plus, it's got the director as what's his name?
Guillermo.
Yeah, and I like his style. But I don't know why they went from let's make a third movie, because they definitely had it in mind and they had it all fleshed out as far as I can tell.
Bunraku.
What?
Bunraku.
Never even heard of it.
Never heard of it?
Jesus.
It's all.
That reminds me of
He has to fight through all these guys, and it's not Bruce Willis. It was Woody Harrelson. That's who it was. It's got Demi Moore in it.
but it reminds me of what's that other movie that's all digital, that's
I think it's by the same group that did Sin City.
right. There's a movie, it's on Netflix right now. It's set in the past, and it was what the hell's his name? One of my favorite directors. Directed. Robert Zemeckis did it. Beowulf.
Beowulf. The cartoon?
It's not a cartoon.
Or the...
They filmed the whole damn thing.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Then they digitally.
They rotoscoped it? Or they...
Yeah. They went over it digitally.
Yeah. Are you the one they called Beowulf? Mm-hmm. Angelina Jolie.
The thing is I can forgive Robert Zemeckis, because Robert Zemeckis is Robert Zemeckis, and he's a god, you know, to me, because there's a lot of things that he's done in his past that I think are fantastic, but I don't think he should have done that. I mean, I know it was a new technology at the time, and he was trying to break ground. And it's like, no, it sucked.
I like some of it.
But that's what that Raku looks like too.
Oh,
But they
but that was
filmed
all.
it and then
But that was all live action stuff.
CG
But
over it.
they did all. It was like all the a lot of the backgrounds, and it's all hyper colors. It's a fun little like Game of Death type of movie. But Bunraku.
Woody Harrelson. And that's another thing I hope they don't screw up.
White men can't jump.
No.
Oh.
I don't want them to screw up Carnage.
Oh,
I mean, did they pick the right guy to play Carnage? Yes.
to play Carnage?
Because Woody Harrelson will do a fantastic job as Carnage. But they can screw up the whole movie.
I didn't see Venom. Was Venom good?
Yes, Venom was very good. I mean, there was some cliche things that they did that people complained about, that I complained about also. There was a scene where where the symbiote goes off half of his face, so you can see Tom Hardy on one side, and that's not necessary, in my opinion, because when he's Venom, just keep the Venom.
Keep the Venom. But you have to see him.
I don't.
That's what the Mandalorian's going through right now.
It's like,
I want to be Fiend.
and it's like, there's enough Tom Hardy during the entire movie to where, once he's Venom, just keep him Venom. But there's so many great lines in the movie because just like the Venom in the comic book, he's got a sick and twisted sense of humor. And, so like there's this scene where he grabs this guy and he's like, if I ever see you here again, I'm going to rip off your arms and your legs and just leave you lying on the ground. And you'll be this thing, unable to move. And it's like, great, that's perfect. But then he ends up biting the guy's head off anyway.
That makes it sound like he's channeling his Christopher Walken.
So, yeah.
Bite off your head. I'll leave you here as a thing.
But yeah,
Lifeless.
but the it's a really good movie. The only thing is that what everybody's talking about is they're wondering how to insert Spider-Man into that
universe.
Right. And I think what could be done, just thinking from a writer's perspective, is in the original comic books of where Spider-Man, gets the Venom thing, that came from the Secret Wars series, and when he was fighting on that alternate Earth, they found that symbiote thing and to replace his suit, and then later he discovers, the Fantastic Four discovers that it's alive and that it's kind of a symbiote thing or parasite that's attached to him, and so then he freaks out and they use a sound gun to get it off of him, and then it comes and it escapes from the Fantastic Four and comes and gets back on him, and he's trying to separate himself from it, and it's in love with him, and at one point he goes to a cathedral because sound hurts it, and he rings the bell, and that's what separates it from him, and it sloughs off, and it happens to land on Eddie Brock, and that's how he becomes Venom. That's all from the original comic book. And then there was the next time he meets Venom for the first time, Eddie Brock comes to his house, and is talking to Peter Parker. He knows everything about Peter Parker, Aunt May, where he lives, all that stuff, and he's trying to figure out how he knows all these things, and that's when he changes in front of Peter Parker, and you realize, oh shit, he knows everything because the symbiote knows everything that I know. And so, it's that thing where, he's in love with him. But what originally, in my opinion, what originally attracted the symbiote to Peter Parker is because Peter Parker was Spider-Man, and he already had a lot of power. And so the symbiote could actually feel all that power and translated that to love. This is just my opinion. And was in love with that character. And what I think is, if they wanted to insert Peter Parker into that world that they've created for Eddie Brock and Venom, is there should be a scene where Peter Parker is just doing his, either student thing, or maybe if he's already a reporter by the time he gets to that world, somehow have the symbiote transfer to him and kind of fall in love with him, like a love at first sight, or the love at first grafting, or whatever you want to call it, and not want to leave, and have because he can feel all that power from Spider-Man, and and kind of play the whole movie as kind of a love triangle, where Brock is trying to get the symbiote back, and the symbiote is in love with Parker, but is still kind of in love with Brock, and kind of play that angle as a love story.
Hmm.
And I think that would work. And if anybody out there actually heard that, I don't know. I mean, because that's the way I would write it, but I don't know if anybody gives a shit. But it would be kind of fun, because there's this one scene in one of the, when he first fights Brock as Venom in the original comic books, because I read them all. I was a young nerd. Anyway, there's a scene where Brock is just beating the crap out of him, because everything that Spider-Man tries, because his spider sense doesn't work against the symbiote or anything, because, the symbiote's able to camouflage itself from it. At one point, he tries to throw a Spidey tracker on it, so it can at least track where the hell the guy's at, but the symbiote can feel it, and he takes it off and he crushes it. And, so he's just getting his ass kicked at every point. And finally, at one point, he takes his suit off to where he's just Peter Parker in his underwear. This is all part of it, It's funny, because this one was actually drawn by, who's the guy that did Spawn?
Todd McFarlane?
Yeah, Todd McFarlane actually drew this one comic book that I'm talking about. Anyway, at one point, he takes his clothes off, and he's standing there, almost buck naked, and he's like, "Fine, you can have me." And Venom's like, "Well, that kind of doesn't make it as fun." And he's like, "I'm not talking to you, Brock. I'm talking to the symbiote." And he's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You can have me. I love you. I want you back." And Brock's like, "That's the stupidest thing ever." And then all of a sudden he could feel it start to slide off of him. He's like, "Oh shit." And so the thing slides off, and it's trying to connect to Parker, and it goes halfway up his legs, and it's halfway up Brock's legs, and there's kind of a short circuit thing that happens, and they all kind of freak out and pass out, and then Spider-Man wakes up, and the thing kind of slides off of his body, and the symbiote couldn't disconnect from one and reconnect to another, because it was emotionally too destructive or something, but that's what how he won that particular fight. And I think that would be kind of a cool thing to do in a movie. Once again, it's a love story.
You just want to see Spider-Man in his underwear, huh?
Sure. Tom Holland in his underwear.
And Tom Hardy in his underwear.
Yes.
Bruno.
but yeah, I mean, that to me would be, to
Bronson.
me that would be the only way to write him in, is there has to be some accidental meeting to where the symbiote bonds with Spider-Man,
Right.
and then it becomes a love triangle.
Yeah, you could do a thing where he, like, something happens with Brock and this suit gets knocked off of him, and him and Parker pair up.
Right.
And in the comic, what was interesting is that the reason why Peter would wake up tired.
Right, because
He didn't realize, but the symbiote was just taking him out.
Right, running
Around town, and so he started realizing that it was starting to try to take over.
Yep.
And that you could do that really quickly in the story, and then you cast it off, and then maybe the explosion was caused by Spider-Man, and that's the reason why Brock hates him, and their mutual hatred for
each other.
For Spider-Man and for, I know in the book it's their mutual hatred for Peter Parker specifically.
Right.
But this one would be hatred for Spider-Man. And they,
Although
get together.
Although they say, even in the comic books, I mean, it's, they say they hate Peter Parker, but really, and Brock should have sensed this. I don't know why he didn't, but there's love there, because that, the symbiote is in love with Peter Parker, is in love with Spider-Man. Because you would have to imagine, because Peter Parker or Spider-Man all on his own can lift a semi-truck without much trouble. I mean, he is a super strong dude. For a symbiote, that must be fantastic. It's like, wow, he can do all this stuff already.
Well, but then the symbiote gives Brock those powers, doesn't he? Brock doesn't have powers, does he?
No, Brock doesn't have any powers at all. But yeah, the symbiote has its own powers, which when he was hooked up with Spider-Man, did give him a lot cooler powers. Like Spider-Man could blend into a wall, could change back into civilian clothing, just by thinking about it. Could have Spider-Man never did it, but the black stuff could shoot off and grab things, and bring it back. And also it enhances strength, etc. So, yes, but it must have been quite exciting to hook up with, But also, if you read any of the What If comic books from Marvel, he's hooked up with, because originally they wanted the symbiote to just be, a blob that would go around and hook up with everybody. That was their original thought. But everybody fell in love with Eddie Brock, all the readers. And it's just like the damn mech driver. People fall in love with it, and they don't want to get rid of it.
Yeah. What's his name in Blade 3?
Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds. Yeah. He's only supposed to have a couple lines.
Yeah.
And then end up stealing the show.
Yeah.
And made a career off that movie.
That wasn't his career maker.
I think so.
No, his career maker was Van Wilder.
Nah. I think he was destined for a sitcom or whatever. I don't, but he took his shirt off in Blade 3 and everybody went, "What the hell?" And then he was funny, and then he really just...
You've seen Van Wilder, right?
Yeah.
He has that one scene where he's nude and the people are drawing him.
Yeah, but he wasn't Blade. He was jacked in Blade.
Yeah, but he was. I mean, he was in.
He was in
great
shape, but he was jacked in Blade.
Yes, he was.
And
jacked
all
in
of a sudden, he went from being just the scrawny, funny mouth to action hero.
Blade. Yeah.
You know, and he would have never gotten like Green Lantern off of Van Wilder.
Oh no.
But off
You're
of
right.
Blade,
Off of Blade, he probably got that. Yes.
you know, and that just
Of course, that's what you get for going and doing a DC movie. Is you get glowing pajamas.
the glowing pajamas.
You know.
Which, you know, probably wouldn't have been so bad if the movie hadn't been bad.
The movie
and so-
was very bad.
Because it was all bad except for the little AO training, which was good. That was good. That little section was fine, but the rest of it was
No.
long and bad. They should have just remade the First Light cartoon.
Right.
And
And I mean, I know he's older and out of shape, but I still think, God, I can't even remember his name. Right
Fillion.
now. Fillion could have
Oh,
done
yeah.
a better job.
Oh yeah, because Hal Jordan's supposed to be a dry comedian,
Right.
not, you know, how Fillion should have been the Lantern, and Reynolds should have been the Flash.
Right.
Because the Flash is cocky, you know, trash talking,
Right.
funny guy. That's, you know, he's the Spider-Man mouth of that world.
Right.
Or, which would have been funny because his hair would have been hilarious, but you make him the redheaded guy. The redheaded Lantern. Oh,
I don't know.
why is my brain...
I'm not a DC dude. I don't know who the hell you're talking about.
He's the one who kept... He's always trying to fight Superman.
Well, that just makes him an idiot, right?
No, because if his will is strong enough, shouldn't he be more powerful than
Right.
Guy Gardner? That's who it is, Guy Gardner. Yeah, Guy Gardner. He's the goofiest looking. So that's a pretty good representation. That's pretty good. But for the longest time, he had like a bowl cut
Right.
hairdo. It was just this was him for the longest time. This bowl cut type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of this. He's the mouth, just mouth. You know what I mean? Just cocky. Like I said, he's always calling Superman a wussy. You know, like, bring it on, I'll take you. Because technically, as long as his will would hold out, he should be stronger than Superman. The ring should give you that ultimate power, shouldn't it?
It certainly does. That was the thing.
Because the whole point is he's got to be able to put a Superman in jail, right?
Right. That was the thing I never could stand about the Green Lantern thing is. But
The constructs.
yes,
Yes.
I mean you could do whatever you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
But what was also funny to me is everything was based on color, and so certain colors made them weaker,
Mm-hmm.
and that just was way too funny for me. And even as a kid, I couldn't. It was like no, no, I can't. No.
Yeah. I
I mean,
understand.
I would much rather believe a radioactive spider biting somebody. That was much easier
I
to
was
swallow.
I was all Marvel growing up. I was an X-Men fiend.
Yep.
That was my book of choice, was X-Men. I really didn't even like the Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
I loved X-Men.
Right. Me too.
In fact, my comic books down here, probably half of them are X-Men, and the rest is just a hodgepodge.
Mhm.
The other stuff that I probably have the most of in there would be early Image stuff right from the beginning, Wildcat, Spawn, Cyberforce,
Well, it's funny because
things like that. But other than that, it's just I have like a couple Batmans, a couple Supermans.
I collected a lot of Spider-Man, and
Few
then
Spider-Mans.
and then I collected a little bit of X-Men. I liked X-Men a lot. I collected more of the Wolverine comic when he had his own comic.
I never liked the Wolverine standalone stuff.
I did. I loved it. There was a lot of them where he wasn't truly alone. He for some reason he hooked up with Invisible Woman from Fantastic Four,
Really?
and he was traveling with her for a while.
That's an odd pairing.
Yeah, it was kind of cool.
I tell you, it would be fun to do if you ever got invited to do a stint at Marvel. Would be that alternate Fantastic Four, where they had Wolverine, Ghost Rider, the Hulk, and Spider-Man. I think it was. Was this alternate Fantastic Four group?
But I thought Fantastic Four was a group because they got their powers together
Right.
in a spaceship. Anyway, but one of the things that I did collect when they had it, and that was one of the things that I wanted them to explore with the movies, and they can do that real easy. Is I collected every one of the Venom comic books when he had his own run for a while there. It was after the whole Carnage. They had a series, Maximum Carnage. It was after that, and he was his own man, and he was living in San Francisco, and he was now working for the government. And his job for the government was when negotiations and everything else fails, they just send him in to kill everything.
Kill everything.
Yes, that was his job. There was this one where the series starts out where there's this plane that's been hijacked and it has important people on it, and they think, well, we can just shoot the plane down, although it does have countermeasures on it, and so they decide to send him in. So they fly him over in another plane and have him jump onto the other plane. And then he just bursts in and starts killing all the terrorists in the plane. So yeah, it's really cool. But what they did with the series is which
That's
really
hilarious, right? So he goes from this plane to that plane, right?
Mhm.
Falls down,
smashes through.
smashes through. I mean, kind of like how Bane. So Tom Hardy's character Bane,
No, not the same thing.
but kind of like that, but Bane, and now he's Venom.
More of a free fall.
And they did the same type of. But
Yes. Anyway, so he smashes through, kills everybody. But what was funny is what they did with the series. They because there was like we're talking about is there's standalone stories where there's a bad guy and blah blah blah, and and he takes care of that. But at the same time, the whole story, the whole overarching theme of the series was he discovers. Because at one point, because he threatens to bite people's heads off all the time.
yeah,
And in the comic book, at one point, he actually bites this guy's head off. And Brock has no control over the symbiote and can't stop it from biting this guy's head off and eating his brain. And it freaks Brock out, and he has a conversation with the symbiote, and he's like, I don't understand. Why would you eat his brain, type of thing. I mean, I know we threaten it all the time, but I don't understand why. That's I'm not a cannibal. I don't understand why. And the symbiote explains to him, well, the reason that I do that is because one of the things that, you know, gives me life, the reason that I attach to somebody anyway, is I get my power from this one particular part of your brain, the pleasure center. And so from that point on, Brock is trying to satiate the parasite that's attached to his body by eating large quantities of chocolate. So
pleasure.
from that point on in the comic book, Venom constantly has like a bag of chocolate that he carries around and he's constantly eating.
That's funny.
And but yeah, that's what the whole overarching theme of this story is he's trying to control this monster from becoming a true monster that just runs around eating people's brains. And so it's really a cool story arc. But yeah.
I didn't read much of it.
Mm-hmm. But there's this one scene that you'd appreciate.
I never had a lot of money to buy comics.
Me neither. But there's this one scene that you would appreciate where he's swinging through the city and he's singing, Venom guy, Venom guy. Symbiote having Venom guy.
Oh, man.
Okay, that's funny.
Man, I used to watch remember the old cartoon, the old TV show in the 70s?
The one with Iceman and Storm?
No, the live action show.
Oh, that.
Where he would do the thing,
Mm-hmm.
but it'd be like ropes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I remember.
Oh, gosh. I love that stuff, man.
Yeah.
Ooh, boy.
All right, well, I
We've
don't
been
know.
talking for a long time. That stretched out another hour.
Yeah. I guess we're done, huh?
I guess we're done.
But yeah, that's been another exciting episode.
Woohoo! Like, comment, share. You know, especially comment. We'd love to have some feedback.
Avoid COVID.
It obviously fuels more conversation.
Right.
Yeah, avoid COVID.
Yes. It's not fun.
All right, thanks, and
Thank
have
you.
a good week.
Good night. Bye.